mean. Say the truth, we can question what you've seen. Mind over media, break free from the mold. Trap rap revolution, we taking control. No one wants nothing's changed, we standing tall. With everyone that speak, I'll make them all fall.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Let's Talk Live here on the LTL Media channel. It's Sunday evening, 9 p.m., a little bit of a late show here for me. I usually start a little earlier, but I did have to work today, and I just got out. I thought this would be a perfect time as we're kind of taking pause in the Karen Read case with the mistrial that happened this past Monday. Supposedly, the Commonwealth is going to have the status hearing on the 22nd. And go from there and talk about possibly retrying Karen Read, which is a complete collapse in, just a bunch of bullshit, essentially, in frame job in Karen Read's case. I just don't see how the Commonwealth can bring this case forward. There's so many more things to talk about that. But that is not, we're going to spend some focus tonight on Sandra Birchmore, as I thought that this would be a great time to bring that up because we had new information that came out just at the end of June with an independent forensics investigation. And they had Dr. Baden come in. And if you've ever seen the HBO series Autopsy, that was a huge, feel like Donald Trump right now, huge. That was a big show back in the 90s on HBO. And he actually came in and made the determination that he does not think that Sandra Birchmore died by suicide, that it was actually a murder. So better, who I wanted to bring in again, and I did a show with Mizzy back in March, and she is the admin or the leader of the Sandra Birchmore Facebook group, Justice for Sandra Birchmore, on Facebook. And I wanted to have another conversation with her and bring her in because the last time we really left this off was the FBI was looking into the case, but now we have this other investigation, this evidence now that's come forward from the family. And I won't wait too much longer. I'm going to bring Mizzy in here and have a conversation with her. Mizzy, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you, Brian?
I'm good. I'm a little bumbly tonight. Like I'm usually better prepared because I literally just ran from work, ran upstairs, got online, and here we are. So how are you?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good.
I think we have some good information we've been waiting for.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm excited about what's been going on right now in Sandra Birchmore land.
Yeah, it's all good things. And like I said, the last time we talked back in March, we had the inklings that the FBI was looking into this case. Now Sandra's family has come forth and they've done another independent investigation. We had Dr. I think it's Baden. Am I saying it right? Or
Yeah.
Baden? Yeah, Baden. That might Baden. And now he's come up with his determination. He's like one of the best in the world. Yeah. And he's come to his determination that he said that Sandra did not die by suicide, that this was a murder. So here we are. And I just want to see this really quick. Karen, thanks for the $5 Canadian. She said, if the CW was given all the information from the FBI, the CW had the proof that the accident happened. Isn't this malicious prosecution? Are you talking about Sandra's case or Karen's case? If you can clarify for me, I can definitely answer that.
Karen's case, because there's nobody been tried in Sandra's case. Nobody's ever, it's been nothing, no charges or anything.
Right. Yeah, there's no charges, but hopefully that something comes soon. So let's do this. I have some articles and some videos that I pulled up, and I'm going to kind of give Mizzy the stage a little bit. Again, I'm a little bit familiar with this. I know the major players in it. You have Divine, you have the Farwell brothers involved in this. They were former Stoughton police officers that were involved in the Explorers program, correct? And that was something that Sandra obviously took part in. That's how they kind of all met in all of this.
Yep.
And that was back in previous to 2021, correct?
Yes. She started it when she was 13 and she died when she was 23. So 10 years.
Okay. Now I heard, and I've read a lot of reports in listen, I don't want to get into a lot of the details of it, but I heard a lot of the reports that the abuse, I heard reports started back as young as 13, but most of the reports I see are 15. Not that it makes it either right in any way, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to give a timeline to everybody.
At 13, they started grooming her, and then they have proof. It's through text messages with Matthew Farwell that he took her virginity at 15.
Jesus Christ.
So he has underage activity with her.
Right. And then, so Farwell, Divine was their supervisors, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Divine was both Matt and Williams supervisors. It's a crazy case, folks. So let's just pull up where we are right now. Let me just pull this article up. We'll go through a little bit of this. So we had the Boston Globe that did a report back on June 26th. Independent forensic pathologist questions whether DNA and other testing was done in Sandra Birchmore's case. So it goes on to Dr. Michael Baden. I think it's Baden. I think that's the way he pronounces it. It says it's appears fetal tissue and samples collected for a SA kit haven't been examined. So it says after Sandra Birchmore, the woman who allegedly was groomed as a teenager by 3 former Stoughton police officers, was found dead in her Canton apartment in 2021. Investigators took her clothing and biological material from her body for an SA kit and preserved fetal tissue because she was pregnant. But more than 3 years later, a forensic pathologist hired by the family, which is like the best pathologist that you could hire, says her family questioned whether the samples were even tested, telling a lawyer for her family on June 18th that it appears that they haven't been examined. The claims by Dr. Baden added to the controversy surrounding the death of Birchmore, 23, a former participant in the Stoughton Police Youth Program who idolized law enforcement and told friends before she died that she was expecting a baby boy by a married detective on the force. The FBI and the Attorney General's office have launched their own investigation into Birchmore's case. Goes into the Norfolk District Attorney's Office, Massachusetts State Police, and Officer Chief Medical Examiner were the first investigators assigned to the case, and so far all declined to say whether the samples singled out by Bowden have been tested. Gosh, isn't that just a coincidence, Mizzy? They don't want to say anything. Isn't that just a coincidence?
Of course.
Oh, God. Given the connections between Birchmore and the 3 former Stoughton police officers she met through the youth program, the lack of testing in samples, as alleged by Bowden, does not seem to be fit with the standard practices that I am familiar with, said, I'm going to probably butcher this, and I'm sorry. Is it Dejuna Perkins, a former state prosecutor who now practices law in Dedham? It screams a red flag. Gee, really? Perkins said Wednesday. Bowden questioned the forensic testing in Birchmore's case last week in a letter summarizing his review of her autopsy by the state medical examiner's office. Excuse me, written to a lawyer for Birchmore's estate. Bowden said that the determination of her death was homicide, contradicting earlier findings by state investigators who said she killed herself and no foul play was involved in her death. Bowden wrote Birchmore was 10 weeks pregnant. No criminal charges have been filed in this case. It's insane that no criminal charges have been filed in this case. I mean, they have all of the evidence, and I've read the reports, you've shared them with before. They literally have all the evidence that all 3 of these players, all 3 of these officers involved in some way had inappropriate relationships with Sandra Birchmore. I cannot believe that any of this has been filed. And do you know what even the excuse, like, what is their excuse? What, because she's not alive anymore?
Exactly. They say because, especially with Matthew Farwell, I was told Matthew Farwell was the one that they could really try to go after because it was underage.
Sure.
And because she isn't there to face him, because in SA cases, you're allowed to face your accuser, they can't file charges. It's
I'm going to tell you, this is deeper than Sandra. That's why, because I'm going to probably tell you, and maybe you've heard through this, circle in the investigation that you've done in this, I'm telling you, there's probably more victims out there that are very, very afraid to come forward, or they're hushing those victims in some way. That's why they don't want this to go public. Because most of the time, this, that when there is allegations of anything like this, of any wrongdoing, especially with underage and possible very inappropriate relationships, it's not just one person. There's multiple victims probably involved in this, and I'm sure maybe people have come forward to you. I don't know. Have you heard anything?
Well, there is a girl in the report. She was groomed. She made a mistake and luckily got kicked out of the program, so that saved her. My problem is they should have taken every person who went through that program, whether they were a boy or a girl, interviewed them. But they probably didn't want that answer. They didn't want to know. I have a friend of hers who I spoke to who wouldn't tell me. She knew about Sandra and them, and she warned Sandra, don't mess with them. And she said that she knew of 2 other children, and I told her, but she wouldn't tell me everything that she knew about Sandra's case. She said she made a promise to Sandra when Sandra was alive, and she wanted to keep that promise even though she was dead. And I told her, I was like, the best thing you could do for Sandra is tell the truth.
Yeah.
And she refused.
Yeah. I mean, even look at who was, and I forgot his name, but the Olympic trainer that was doing all those awful things to all those gymnasts. And they knew that there was multiple victims, but no one wanted to stand up and say anything. And a lot of the cases, it's like that because people feel shame, or they feel like they're not going to be taken seriously if they come forward. And I mean, even look at that guy. I mean, there was multiple girls that this guy was for years. And this guy was so brave, and that he was doing it actually in the room with the parents there. It's just insane. It's insane. Larry Nassar, thank you. Yeah, Larry Nassar. I mean, just another demon that needs to be put in a dungeon and never let out. But this is I just can't believe there's no charges come on.
And you think of it like this is the state that put that girl, I can't remember her name, who his name was Connor. That kid Connor who killed himself. And she convinced him to kill her for him to kill.
I know the case. Yep.
The state that came up with creative charges. Why can't they do that in this case?
Yeah.
Some people have said, why can't they? One of the things that they've said with police officers who do this is try to charge them with how they charge officers who are violent on the streets, assaulting people in that way, because it is still a physical assault.
Right.
So
but it comes out to being like a lesser charge because it's not a statutory charge.
Yes.
So they try to minimize.
At least it's something. It's something.
Right. But they're trying to minimize the fact that it's an underage girl when this was all happening. So you were telling me, I asked you, how did they actually find out all of this? You said that Matt Farwell actually deleted all of the text messages, correct?
Yeah. When Sandra passed away, they saw him on the video, and people started calling the Massachusetts State.
We'll play that in a second. I'll show everybody what we're talking about.
Started calling the Massachusetts State Police saying, Matthew Farwell, he's a Stoughton police officer. I believe her aunt said the same thing, talked to Matthew Farwell. And then they went and talked to him. And the second he left her apartment, he deleted all contact with her, every text message, everything he had on her. He deleted her. Not only deleted her in life, he deleted her from his phone. And luckily, I have not found out this answer because I was thinking about this actually today.
Sure.
Her devices were hooked up to her computer because she had an iPad. And I wonder if he deleted her phone too. I've never gotten that answer. But it's
interesting. Well, we found out who's the forensic officer, because this happened in Canton, and you can say the name because we have a little bit of cross here, and that's what's very interesting about this case. Sandra was living in Stoughton at the time when this all happened. She had moved to Canton, correct?
Yep.
And then, ironically, just like Karen Reed's case, who was some of the responding officers? We had Lank and we had Garino.
Lank was first for Canton PD. Garino came later just to do the phones.
To do the forensic, yeah.
Fanning was the lead trooper. Dunn, he was also in the Karen Reed case.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of troopers and people, obviously Michael Morrissey's office. It's the same unit. It's that same detective, unit that investigates, unattended deaths. And it's
crazy.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of things, a lot of coincidence between these two cases too. And listen, we don't have any evidence that they're related, but we're just saying that there are some major players, obviously police officers that responded to Karen's case are involved in this case too. You wanted to clear up a rumor, correct?
Yeah.
And you just want to make sure this is correct on the record.
Couple things. One, Officer Lank was not the first person on the scene. He was called to the scene. The first person to see Sandra's body was an Officer Cotard. So Officer Lank was the sergeant on duty. So he came to the scene after they found her. Number two, Kevin Albert is part of this case, but he's like a blip on the screen as far as we know. But he's a blip on the screen. He never even was there when Sandra was found. He came back when they came back on the 6th to retrieve the surveillance video and to basically check out the apartment one more time and return the apartment over to the apartment manager. And the last one, Proctor was not on her case.
Not involved. Yeah, that was coming up today, and I'm like, he was not.
There's a possibility he called a witness to set up an interview. There's things like that because he is in the unit, but he's not involved in this case. And those are three rumors that keep going around. I know I hate to use this word, but I know it's more sexy to say, oh, these people were involved in both cases, but there's so much connective tissue with both these cases. You don't need to add fuel to the fire by saying Proctor or saying,
Sure.
Kevin Albert. Like I said, he was there. Kevin Albert was a small part of the case, but he wasn't like a huge investigator on her case. Michael Lank did do some investigating on the case. Out of all of them, Michael Lank was more involved than any of those people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I read his name multiple times in the reports. So Andrew's asking, is there a state police report?
Yes.
Yeah. And I've read through some of the reports. Some of it is stuff that you don't even want to read. I mean, it's awful. I mean, we went through it on that live in March, and I had a hard time even just reading through it, knowing all the stuff that was talked about in those reports. And if anybody wants to read them, they're on the justice page, right? Yeah, and then go to the documents tab.
Yeah, in the file section, you can go right there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to read through them. I've read through them once before, and I don't want to keep going through it. So let's just go back to this article and finish this up really quick, and then we can go to some videos here. So it goes on to Birchmore's estate is suing the three former police officers. Where are they all now, Mizzy? Where's the Farwell brothers and Divine?
Divine's a lawyer in Massachusetts. Yeah. Matthew is in Easton. And William is in New Mexico.
He got away. He wanted to go far, far away.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Birchmore's estate is suing the former three police officers, wrongful death and complaint, and they accuse them of engaging in a near decade-long scheme of grooming and repeated assaults, which culminated in her death. They are Matthew G. Farwell, 38, a married former Stoughton police officer, detective, patrolman unit, president, and father of whom Birchmore met through a youth department, youth program, as well as his twin brother, William, and Robert C. Divine, 52, a former deputy in Stoughton, who previously led the department's youth program. All three resigned from the department in 2022 and denied the allegations in a civil lawsuit. That's how they got the information out, right? Because of that civil lawsuit. That's how they got the deeper investigation, correct?
That's how they got this pathologist, because I had a source come to me and tell me that the family needed to get the autopsy report because they somebody was close to my source had seen the autopsy report, and they said, this girl was murdered. You need to tell the family to get the report. And I passed that along. The family never got the report, but because of the lawsuit, all parties got the report.
Wow.
And this was just in the last few months. So that's why this came about. The lawyer must have seen what, saw the report and was like, I need to get somebody on this because something's wrong. So
has that been released to the public or no?
No. And okay. It'll come out in the trial, the civil trial, but I doubt it'll be released to the public. Unfortunately, Massachusetts, you can't get reports. I did a FOIA request. They said no.
Yeah, they give you nothing in the state. It's so weird. So weird. So it goes on. It says the lawsuit also accuses Matthew Farwell of having sex with Birchmore when she was 15 and he was 27. If true, those actions would constitute a statutory rape, as well as the age of consent in Massachusetts is on 16. In court papers, Matthew Farwell has denied having sex with Birchmore when she was underage. The attorney who represents Birchmore's estate, Stephen J. Morello, declined to comment. Records show that the state police asked Farwell to provide a DNA sample in 2021, and he declined. I mean, come on. I mean, right there.
But they didn't do that either. They didn't go after, they could have got a warrant to get his DNA, and they never did. And the question is why? We know why.
Because it's one of their own. That's why. Yep.
If it was anybody else, they would have definitely went and got a warrant to get your DNA.
Oh, they would have been knocking on my door right now, grabbing it.
Yep.
But Perkins said that Birchmore's case, there was reasonable suspicion to pursue DNA testing, and investigators who have several options of obtaining samples from people who decline to provide them voluntarily. He's a police officer, with a lot of power, she said. Of course, you want to know who is the father of the child, and so you would request the DNA to be tested. Judges may grant investigators in order to compel a person to provide a DNA sample, even if they have not been charged, as long as they show that there are probable causes to believe the crime has been taken place, and that the testing would likely provide evidence relevant to whether the defendant is guilty. Investigators could also obtain a discarded item like a cup or a can, which we've seen in the List case just recently out on Long Island, the Long Island serial killer Rex Human. They literally got a piece of crust. They followed him and picked out of the trash a piece of crust to get his DNA. And that dude right now is being connected to a lot more deaths. It's insane. And I said this when that case broke. I said, that guy's going to go down probably as one of the most prolific serial killers of all time. Like literally of all time. Investigators could get a cup or a can, DNA. She said other options would be compare a fetal tissue to DNA information on publicly available genealogy website to identify relatives, Perkins said. And it's funny that they say that because in the Idaho 4 case, that's essentially how they found out Brian Koberger in that case, became the main suspect in that case through the genealogy websites. So it goes on. It says that all has solved a few cold cases. Under state law, Birchmore's death is investigated by Norfolk District Attorney Michael W. Morrissey with help from the state medical examiners and state police. Gee, you think he's going to be really that cooperative? Come on. On Wednesday, a spokesperson for the state medical examiner office said that in an email that was tested by the agency is focused on asserting cause of manner of death or to identify the decedent. The medical examiners collect evidence to preserve others for use by other agencies, but didn't routinely perform tests, go beyond the role of determining the cause of manner. Decisions about whether to perform additional testing are made by district attorneys or police working for them, the spokesman said. So if they don't push it further, which they're not going to, obviously, you can't get more information or more groundbreaking or relative information in this case. Man, the cover-up is insane in this case.
Yep.
David, I think it's Tarub. I think I might have said that right. A spokesperson for Morrissey said that forensic DNA testing was conducted on items with the potential to provide evidence for the potential crimes being investigated, but not provide specifics. Other items have been preserved as well. Farwell's connection to Birchmore was relayed to investigators in early February 5th, 2021, the day after she was found dead. State police records show during interviews at East Elementary School in Sharon, where Birchmore worked, the principal told troopers he had spoken to Birchmore's aunt and she had mentioned Farwell. Three other school employees said Birchmore had shared that she was pregnant. Two of those employees said Birchmore described your boyfriend as a police detective. And one of those employees said Birchmore shared that her boyfriend was married father who worked for the Stoughton police records show. On February 6, 2021, state police interviewed Farwell and reviewed surveillance footage from the Birchmore's apartment building in Canton that captured him entering and exiting the property 5 days earlier. All right, let's play that, Mizzy.
Yeah.
So just to get people caught up. Again, this is just a lot of review for people. If you're just coming new into this case, I wanted to kind of refresh this as like I said, we had new information that came up and it's very, very relevant to what's going on. So let me pull that video up and maybe you can kind of walk us through this. So we have here 2/1/21. Now is this all the same day or was this multiple days? I can't remember.
This is all the same day. This is her last moment.
Okay. So we'll play through this. So this is at looks like in the afternoon, 1 p.m. in the afternoon on Monday. And then it skips ahead about 3 hours. So now we're getting into evening. It's probably about 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I think her last.
So this here, who is this? Someone that is. This is not Farwell here, correct?
No, I think it's a delivery because it looks like a sub in her hand. I think she got.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now this is where she goes to clean her car off, right?
I don't know if she actually cleaned her car off, but I know she went and got the broom, the broom to wipe off her car in the morning because she had to go to school in the morning.
Okay, because it had been snowing, correct? It had been snowing, yeah.
They got about a foot of snow in Canton that between the first and the second.
Interesting, right? Snow in Garen's case, snow here it's so weird. So she comes back with a snow brush, if I remember.
Yes.
Yeah. So now she's got her snow brush. She probably brushed her car off, I would think.
Did. I assume she did.
With the hood on and everything. So she's got her phone there. She's getting some kind of text message. And this is Farwell here, right?
Yes. That's
they think
is later.
This is how long?
It's a few hours later.
Okay.
In the video, surveillance is like 13 minutes fast. So he actually gets there about 15:15. And her cousin was speaking to her through text at 8:50 or 8:55, and she was actually speaking with a coworker on Snapchat, and the last message went unanswered at 9. It was around 9 o'clock. So he comes
now. Yeah. Now, when I see this, I listen. I'm not a police officer. I'm not an investigator. Well, I guess you could say I'm a little bit of an investigator. I have a YouTube channel and I break cases down and look at them. I would look at this guy and say, he's probably trying to hide something here. I mean, coat on, hood, COVID mask, looking down. And I noticed this too.
Looks smaller because he's a big dude. He's really, really tall, and he's trying to make himself look smaller too by hunching down.
Yeah, Olivia says, thank God Proctor wasn't investigating this. We wouldn't have this critical surveillance footage if we had. Yeah, it probably would be mirrored or erased or janky. But it's interesting because I noticed, and you're going to see him come in the elevator and go out. And I pointed this out to you last time. I said, he looks at the camera. He knows where the camera is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's been to that apartment many times. He helped her move into this apartment.
So now how much time has elapsed since the time he goes up and comes down? It's about 20 minutes, correct?
I think it's 29 minutes. Wow. 29 or 28 minutes. Yeah.
I mean, come on. You're the last. And there's where he looks at the camera.
Yep.
You are the last person to see Sandra alive. And then she was found, what, 3 days later?
Yeah, on the 4th.
Yeah, it's awful.
And when he leaves, now this is what I spoke
He
to,
books it out of there too. I always said he leaves in a jiffy.
and I spoke to Trooper Fanning for
Mhm,
about 40-45 minutes, because him and I went back and forth. We were cordial, you know, we were both
mhm.
playing the game, but he kept saying she killed herself, and I said, I don't think she did. And he's like, you know, I've seen a bunch of suicides. Da, 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 da. I said, I don't think she did. I was like, I said, you know what? I will concede that, you know, I tried to kill myself when I was 13. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes you just spontaneously say, I'm going to do it today. But she was so excited about to have this baby. And I said, I don't think she did. I was like, and I said to him, did her phone stop moving when he left? And he said, yes. There was no activity and her phone stopped moving when he
Mm.
left. And I said, isn't that suspicious? He goes, well, we think she did it right then. So the second he left the room, she didn't call anybody else. She was in contact with her cousin who lived on the West Coast at that time, who would have talked to her, gladly spoken to her. You know, remember
Right.
this is during COVID too, so a lot of people are out of work. So she would have gladly spoken to her to talk her down from whatever Sandra was upset about. So I kept pushing him. I said, I go, we're gonna have to agree to disagree. I
Right.
killed her. And he said, no, no, no. I said, he's a detective. He would be able to cover up the scene. He was like, oh, he's not a real detective. I was like, really?
Okay. Yeah. He's just someone that grooms and is a sexual predator,
Yeah.
essentially. Um,
So remember
yeah.
that when they're saying that now that that the pathologist is saying it was homicide, because the lead detective on the case was pushing that it was suicide. He was all in for it being suicide.
Yeah, and I find it interesting too that the way that they say that they found her, that the ligature was it was around her neck and she tied it around a doorknob, correct? Now,
Door handle, like
door
I
handle.
push down and push, you know, like not a door, not an actual, you know, not a doorknob, a handle that you push down. And I find that where, and it was supposedly tied very tight around her throat and tied very tight around the handle, so much so that she had blood coming out of her mouth.
Okay. So I would probably say statistically, if you look this up, and I know it's probably a very gruesome statistic, but I was just thinking about this, like I haven't never really heard of many people, and I'm trying to be as sensitive as I can to this. So I don't want to try to offend anybody because I've dealt with suicide in my family as well too. I lost my brother to suicide, and I'm trying to be very like uh I'm trying not to offend anybody, and I don't want to offend this case, but I think we're all adults here and getting kind of where I'm at. But I think that if you would look at a statistic in the manner that Sandra was found, in the manner that they are saying that she hurt herself or killed herself, I almost probably guarantee you that one, she's pregnant. Not many pregnant women are gonna probably take their own life. Two, in the manner that she was found, with the way that it was done around a doorknob, is probably very low as well too. Because I would think if someone's going to do it that way, it's normally by a standing
Yeah.
hanging in some way,
And she was
statistically.
completely on the floor. She wasn't elevated at all. So there's a
Her
misconception.
bottom was on the floor. Her bottom was, yeah.
Seated on the floor. And, you know, there are people like, you know, Robin Williams,
Yeah.
slightly elevated. There are a lot of people who do it this way. It's called a pressure hanging. So it's
Right.
basically you're doing
Moving
doing,
forward.
but they usually have a little slight elevation, like even
Yeah.
if it's just an inch or so. She was totally seated.
Yeah. I think the guy from the 80s band might have been
In
in
excess.
excess, or in excess did it that way as well too. A pressure
Yeah.
hanging. Yeah, it's very interesting.
And
But
that's
I mean, to me, it tells me that you brought a shoelace, you essentially strangled her, and then just tied her up to the doorknob. I mean, that's the way that I would look at it. So let's play through this here and go back a little bit. We can watch him walk in and come out of that elevator. Yeah, he looks right at the camera, and he's
Yeah.
booking here. See how fast he goes?
And you can see the snow in the background too.
Yeah, I'll rewind it again. And just even the body language too, with the kind of the shoulders going up and the head going down when he walks into the look at just the body language is off. Something seems off. Why would you not question this guy more? He's the last person literally in that apartment. You're just gonna let him go? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Wow. He's one of them.
Yeah, he's one of them.
And I look at it like he had the most motive. You know, his wife was in the hospital getting ready to have their baby. I always say, why was he even there? His wife was getting ready to have a C-section the next day. She was at the hospital. I believe she was there because of the snowstorm. So they wanted her there that night so she could have a C-section the next day. He could have called her to break up with her. He could have texted her. He could have emailed her. He could have FaceTimed her. He did not need to physically go to her apartment to break up with her. So why was he even there? Why? Because he needed to do something to her.
Do something. Get rid of it. Get rid of the evidence. Grant's pants. Go ahead.
A lot of pressure on him. She wanted money for him. She wanted child support. She wanted him to sign the birth certificate. He didn't want to. They got into other altercations. One time she also was kind of threatening him about that she was going to tell people. And he was, so she was going to make trouble at work, trouble at his home life, and he needed to take care of it. He grabbed her phone, and they got into a huge fight. She kicked him out of her apartment. This was a few weeks before. And I don't know if it was then or if there was another time. When he left, she told her friend that he either said, "I wish you would just kill yourself," or "I wish you were dead." And a few weeks later, she was dead.
Wow. Is there any video of that, like of those interactions, like him coming and going from the building at all? Do you know if there's any video like that, like weeks prior to him?
I don't. I got video from them, and it was just pretty much the same as
thing.
Yeah. But he had been there many, many times.
Wow.
Claimed that they hadn't slept together in that apartment, but he's a liar.
Yeah, he's a liar. Grant's pants question: is that considered a double homicide? Yeah, I mean, if you kill a pregnant mother, absolutely. Yeah, you would go down for a double homicide. Someone was just asking, is he still with his wife? Does anybody know if he's still with his wife?
Yeah. I just got to plug my phone in. Sorry.
Yeah. Hostage take Curtis, $2. Kirk Minihans did a full season on this case in
Yes. Yeah. It's called The Case.
The Case.
Season 2. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. Let's pull up one of these videos. Let's see. Here's Banfield. Let's pull this up and see.
Bring in Melissa Berry now.
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to bring in Melissa Berry now. Melissa Berry runs the Justice for Sandra Birchmore Facebook page, which has almost 10,000 members. Melissa, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I am so perplexed by this story. I still can't get my head around why they don't think they have enough to go after these 3 guys and any of the others that are alleged to have had underage sex.
Now, when was this spot? When did you do this? Just recently, right?
Yeah, it was the day before 4th of July.
Oh, okay.
With this young girl. But you just heard, as you know, Caitlin Becker reported, we're talking about 2 potential sets of criminal activity, the child rape and then also a potential murder. Why is it, other than this hyoid bone being broken in her neck, which might suggest that it's not suicide, why is it that many others believe that Sandra did not take her own life, that she was indeed murdered instead?
Well, I appreciate you having me on today. Because the manner of how her hanging was, she wasn't hanging from like a pole or something. She was actually in a fully seated position. The ligature was tied around her neck and around the door handle, very tight. And that's usually a type of manner of death that prisoners kill themselves, not a young woman of
Aaron Hernandez killed himself that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think he was elevated, I think. Like and I can't confirm that. Maybe someone can, but I think that he was actually, it was a pressure hanging and it was an elevated hanging. I think he was elevated in some way. And it's
And
very odd that she is seated. I'm sorry, Mizzy, go ahead.
they put lotion when prisoners do it, they put lotion or powder on the floor so they can't get traction.
So they just keep slipping.
Yeah, keep slipping, so they can't get tapped, so they can't change their mind. Basically.
Wow. Oh.
23. Usually people who hang themselves, they're elevated. She was fully seated, and just the circumstances of him leaving and how he came, and he was the last person to see her. The way he came in with the mask on, hood up, and the baseball cap, head down. It was very suspicious how he came in and out of her building.
And we should be really clear here that Sandra did not seem to indicate to any of her friends that she was displeased about being pregnant. It seems to me she was actually preparing, and it seemed that she was excited. What do you know about that?
Yeah, she was telling anyone who would listen that she was pregnant. She was excited. She was buying a carriage. She bought a baby seat that actually got delivered the night that she died.
Wow.
And she also was buying tons of baby clothes. She was calling old friends, high school friends, and telling them that she was pregnant. She was absolutely excited to have this baby. So that's another reason why a lot of people don't think that she did commit suicide.
And she had told friends of hers that.
Look at this. Ms. Jessica NB says, I need to link up with you and Mizzy. I knew Matt at Fort Drum, New York. I was in 760th EOD, and Matt's unit supported mine. In Williams EOD creds are definitely sus. Wow. Yeah, reach out to me. I'll drop my email address. I'd like to explore that a little bit more. My email's in the chat. And we'd love to get some more information on these guys. Go ahead, Mizzy.
Brian has my email, and also you can reach out to me. If you go to the Justice for Sandra Birchmore Facebook page, you can message me from there. It's under A Mixed Girl in a Mixed Up World. You'll see my picture.
And you're on Twitter as well too, if you want to get that Twitter handle.
At Sandra Birchmore. I have my own Twitter, but I also run the at Sandra Birchmore, and I post a lot of stuff there too. So
yeah, just hit us up and
comment.
We'll get some more.
I think she commented it on Melanie Little's live stream this today, because Melanie started taking up Sandra's case too, and I think I saw that a comment by this person on Melanie's page too.
Okay, yeah, reach out to us.
Yes, definitely.
It was indeed Officer Matthew Farwell, a married man, much older than she. She was telling friends he was the father?
Yes, and she was also telling co-workers that he was the father.
Co-workers as well. All right, so now the connection to the Karen Read case, because we're in the same geographical area, all of these towns together. Is there any other crossover with the Karen Read case to Sandra Birchmore's case?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of police officers the same from the Canton PD, like Michael Lank. There's state troopers that are the same DA, so there's a lot of crossover because it's the same, she died in the same town as Officer O'Keefe. And so it's the same people who were investigating her case. It's different lead officers, but it's still the same Massachusetts State Police unit that investigated both cases. So there's a lot of crossover.
It's bizarre. So, with all of the Facebook group, and, a lot of times folks who are in social media, they can do a lot of harm if they get a little too aggressive, but they can also unearth some things. Has it been helpful? Have there been any clues in this Facebook group? And if not, what is everybody hoping for in this case that seems cold, but we know it's not?
Well, I've been gathering information on this case for a little over a year and a half. And I have been talking to family, friends, and people are just coming forward saying they didn't believe that she thought she killed herself, that people didn't believe that they thought she killed herself, and that, they want to make sure that justice is done for Sandra and her baby, because she deserves that in death, that she is treated better than she was treated in life by these officers. The police department failed Sandra. We need them to pick up the slack and actually stand up for Sandra. And right now they're not.
And you know what? I want to just mention, as we look at that video, and I'm going to ask our control room to play it again, of Matthew Farwell coming in and out of Sandra's apartment in the days before she was discovered dead. He was apparently there for about 20 minutes. And as you can see, he walks in, he walks out, but his story was that he was there to end the relationship. That's what he told the police. Thank you for watching.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Jesus. Olivia chiming in says, Mizzy, you are a godsend. I have so much respect for you and everything that you've done to get justice for Sandra. We need more people like you. I have to agree with that sentiment.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work to do what we do. And let me ask you, did you personally know Sandra at all, or no? Yeah.
I'm a small creator like you are. I mean, I have a very small footprint. I interview families of loved ones who have been murdered, and I saw the report when it dropped of her in September 2022, and I was like yelling at the TV, and I was like, I got to look into this case. And I just kept putting it off. I would, check to see what was going on, but I didn't really look into it. And then my friend, was the first case I worked on, her name's Sarah, her son Brandon Embry was murdered, and she said to me, "What's up with that Sandra Birchmore case?" And I said, "How do you know about that?" Because she lives in North Carolina, and she had interviewed with the guys from the case. And but they ended up picking up Sandra's story because it was a local story. And her and I, for a few weeks, started digging into Sandra's case. We did like a virtual tour of her apartment building. We did like everything. We found out how much a teaching assistant would make in that area, just like we did, as because we were like, her apartment's expensive. How is she paying for it? We did every little thing we can. And she said to me, "Hey, if you run a Facebook page for her, and I'll do a petition," because she had to get back to her son's murder. And I was like, okay, because I'd never run a page. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. And then I feel like Sandra was chirping in my ear, telling me to start working on the case. And I wasn't listening. And then she said to Sarah, "Tell Mizzy to work on my case." And it's been, going on for a year and a half now.
Yeah, Olivia says sometimes the story just grabs and takes a hold of you. I think she goes, I can relate to that. She's probably talking about the Karen Reed case. Same thing that happened to me with John O'Keefe and Karen Reed case, of course. And Scott says, Mizzy Bryan, is the next Justice for Sandra standout still on for Saturday, July 13th in Stoughton?
No, it's actually the 20th.
Okay. Wow, that's going to be very close to Karen's date in court. She's got court on that Monday, the 22nd. And everybody's saying, you're doing an amazing job. Keep up the fight. And I hope now. So the next thing now is there's going to be a civil trial, correct? That's coming up.
It's still working. It's still going through pretrial hearings and stuff like that. I know that they were I heard from a source that they are starting to take depositions because this person got a subpoena, and they were supposed to be on the 6th of June, I think it was, but that hearing got canceled. I have a feeling they told me it wasn't because of the Karen Reed case, but I have a feeling it was.
Yeah, definitely. So. Olivia's asking, Mizzy, do you know who the medical examiner that performed Sandra's autopsy?
I do, but I don't know her name offhand. It is not the same one that did Officer.
Let me see if I have it in this report. Let me see.
And it was, her autopsy was performed in Boston, not in Cape Cod like John's.
Let me see if I can get it off.
Because when John's autopsy was in Cape Cod, I was like, what? So I got out her death certificate and looked.
I thought one of the articles said it.
I
me
think
see.
her last name is Martinez. I do know
I
that.
think it is too. That kind of rings a bell. Let me see here. Let's see. The medical examiner, the investigator, said that at the time, the young woman's autopsy, which also determined that she was 3 months pregnant, showed no evidence of foul play. Come on. Yeah, it doesn't give the name. And then they had Michael Baden step in and do their independent. And he's like, look, this is murder. I must disagree. Bowden wrote on the 18th to a letter to the lawyer of the Birchmore's estate. Miss Birchmore did not die of suicidal hanging. The cause of Miss Birchmore's death is strangulation, and the manner of death is homicide. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to probably believe that guy. He's done a lot of autopsies and knows his shit. So, yeah, it's probably true.
Yeah. I was thinking the other day because he did Dr. King's. He did there was somebody else, like I was like, not that you want to be in league with, you know, nobody wants to be murdered, but I said, Sandra, you got put in good hands.
Yeah.
You know,
Dr. Bowden's the best.
Yeah.
He's, like I said, I mean, they dedicated a show on HBO, and I don't know if it's still on anymore, but it was called Autopsy. It was back in the night. I used to watch it. I loved watching it. And I remember this specific episode that he had, there was a young lady that was murdered, and they were having trouble finding like the time of cause of death. And he had figured it essentially by the food that she ate in her stomach, and it was peas and carrots. I remember this episode, and he literally could break down.
Yep.
He could visually look at it by the way that the food had dissolved in her stomach, that it was only partially digested at that point. So it gave them a gauge of time. He like really knows his shit. He's really good at it. I just want to pull this up really quick. Hostage take Curtis says, Mizzy, have any cops come out against Farwell?
I have spoken to a Stoughton police officer who they're pretty angry in Stoughton, you know. They're angry that nothing's been done too, because even though I feel like they didn't go far enough with their investigation, they did their investigation and turned all their findings over to Massachusetts State Police and the Norfolk DA's office, and they have not done anything with it. And they you know, they keep getting crap because nothing's been done. And you know, it was their station who this happened to her. It was on their watch. So they done too. But I have talked to people on it. And I flat out asked that person. I said, do you think he murdered her? And he gave me an honest answer. He said, I don't know. And you know, it wasn't an answer that police officers normally, wasn't like, oh no, I don't think he did. No. It was, I don't know. And I felt like that was an honest answer from a cop. So
Lady in Boston saying, will it be televised? I don't think civil trials are in Massachusetts, or nor would they be.
And especially since it's the kind of case it is, you can usually get the Zoom codes though.
Yeah, you might be able to get in a Zoom code. So maybe we can work on that if it comes up and there's some dates that I can do it. You know, obviously we'll try to make that happen here on the channel. Let's check out what Lauren Crime had to say about this. I don't know if you're in this episode or not. You might be. Did Lauren Crime? Have you seen this?
Yes, it's really, really good. They had what's his name? Joseph's.
Yeah.
He's really
Let's play
good.
through some of this. Just hit pause if you want me to pause and you want to add anything. Just tell me pause.
Suicide or murder? That's the question in the case of 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore, whose death 3 years ago was found.
Yeah, Sleuthy, good point.
To be
I love this. Very simple, easy breakdown, Sleuthy. I love it. Says, I don't think it's rocket science. He was there, and then she died. Yeah. Pretty simple stuff. Pretty simple stuff.
And they say right at that moment.
Right at that moment. Yeah.
But now, a world-renowned forensic pathologist says her cause of death was homicide.
There's just certain people in the medical legal community, when their name is mentioned,
that's it.
People are going to sit up and take notice. Yep. And Dr. Baden is certainly one of those.
Baden.
He says the facts in the case just don't add up.
That is an atypical injury that you have in a hanging. That means it does not occur. You have to have sufficient amount of velocity in order to make that bone fracture. And that's what we're looking at here.
But all that is just the beginning.
Feels like a certain level of trust was betrayed, and she was taken advantage of.
There's also allegations that Birchmore was groomed and sexually assaulted by 3 police officers.
Let's see, Sleuthy chiming again. Annie tried to obscure his identity. No reason to do that other than a sketchy one. Yeah, I mean, that's what we said. I mean, full hood, black jacket, COVID mask, looking down, and then comes out of the hands in pocket, comes out, hands in pocket, same thing, mask on. I mean, come on. Like, who goes into a house? Come on, Mizzy.
Yeah.
Who goes into a house? Even during, listen, let's just say even during that, because it was during COVID, okay? Who would go into a house, walking from their car, inside a home, inside a vestibule, up through an elevator, and have a COVID mask on? Like, I get it. Like, if you want to protect yourself, you probably would have it in your hand and someone comes upon. I mean, that's what I did when COVID first broke out. I would have it in my hand. If I walked by someone, you just throw it on really quick. Then after a while, I was like, I'm just not wearing this thing anymore. But realistically, someone would just probably have it in their hand. And then if someone approached them, they would put it on. And there was information that he never wore a COVID mask, correct?
A lot of people have said he was an anti-masker. My thing is, it's not the COVID mask, the hood. Like, usually, you think of it, you walk in, you get out of your car, you walk to, it's cold. And then when you
come in and you take it down,
you it off, and then you kick your shoes, kick the snow off your shoes. And
right.
he leaned into the hood, he put his head down. Like I said, I think he was trying to make himself look smaller because he's a big dude.
He's very big. Yeah.
He's I don't know if he's a YouTuber. He took a video, cut the video so you could see them standing next to each other, and she looks like a child standing next to him, and it makes it even more disgusting that he abused.
All right, let's
starting when she was just 13. At the time of her death, she was pregnant, allegedly by one of those officers.
He started on her journey. She was fascinated by police officers. You would
Olivia says, Julie Grant, Court TV really covering the story now. That woman says, you're far away from this case. I thought she didn't believe in cover-up. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it's like anything to do with Karen's the killer. But anything with this, it's like, it's now a cover-up over here. This is a cover-up. It's not a cover-up in Karen's case, but it's a cover-up here. So a lot of mixed messages on
respect for that young girl to be protected and shielded in this environment.
All this begs the question, could criminal charges soon be filed?
I think that merely his presence in this case is going to compel the prosecutor. And that's where this needs to start.
It was February 4th, 2021, when 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore was found dead inside her Canton, Massachusetts apartment. At the time, investigators said there were no signs of foul play. Medical examiners with the Massachusetts State Police soon ruled her death a suicide.
Mizzy, can you just tell me this before, and they're probably going to talk about this, but I'd like to hear it from you. How did Sandra get involved in the Explorers program?
She loved the police. She wanted to be a police officer when she was younger. And her mom was a single mom, and she thought it was the place that she could send her child to be safe. Who would think that 3 officers are going to groom your child? She thought Sandra was going to a place where she didn't have to worry. And so much so that they found a letter from Sandra's mom to Divine thanking him, because she passed away before. Yeah, she passed away before any of this came out. I wanted to dispel something too. A lot of people, one of the things that they put out there was that Sandra didn't have family. Sandra has family. It's just a lot of her family passed away in a short amount of time. Her grandmother and her mother passed away in 2016, and then one of her aunts passed away in 2019. But she has cousins, and she has her aunt, and but the problem is a lot of people weren't speaking to her because she was dating a married man. They didn't realize what was going on. And a lot of people still don't understand what grooming is. I have a lot of
Yeah.
people say, well, you know, she was 23, she could have got out of it, you know, or she, you know, why didn't she just get away from these guys? And I'm like, you don't understand. Grooming is, they manipulate you. They coerce you. They try to get you to do things like not tell your parents, not tell your family, and they make you feel like you're everything to them. So
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I know someone that is that was very close to me, and they went through a process of an older man grooming them, and at a very young age, all the way up until 18 years old. You know, this started very young and went all the way to 18, and it does happen. It does happen because the manipulation is so long. They play that game in your mind for so long, and then you start accepting it and thinking that it's normal, you know, and that's what's disgusting and very horrifying about these situations.
And Sandra
Um,
looked at him as Matthew as her boyfriend. That was her
yeah,
boyfriend in her eyes. She thought he was going to leave his wife and be with her. You know, Lord
yeah.
only knows what they were telling him, you know, telling Sandra, especially Matthew. She thought she loved this man,
Mhm.
and they took everything from her.
Sarah H, thank you so much for the 10 gifted memberships. Welcome new members. I appreciate that, Sarah H. Thanks for the support. Sleuthy says, especially when it's done by someone who is supposed to be a protector. Absolutely. And that's most of the time when these things happen, it's usually someone that's close. It's in the family or someone that's very close to the family, or in a role of dominance, like a protector, someone like this. That's when these certain situations happen. Um, it's just it's. I mean, there's no words that I can speak about what happened here. It's
For
truly
years,
disgusting.
Birchmore supporters have been outspoken, saying she didn't end her own life. And now, a major figure
Crazy.
in the criminal justice
Again.
world agrees.
It's when Dr. Baden walks into a room or his name is mentioned in regards, people,
Yeah,
you
tend
know,
to
they're
go.
going to they're going to sit up and take notice very quickly, particularly government officials that are involved in the case, because they know they don't want to tangle with him. Because
Well, that's true, but will the DA's office now take this serious enough? That's the big question.
It's not in his hands anymore, though.
Ah,
The attorney general has the case.
oh,
I mean,
okay,
the
good.
North DA could still charge them, but it is in the attorney general's hands now.
So
And
it's in Josh Levy's hands now.
yes, yes,
Perfect. That's the person we want to have.
yes.
Yeah, good.
he'll come out and he will make his own diagnosis, and it carries a lot of weight.
That's forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan. We reached out to him about this case to review the findings of Dr. Michael Baden. Dr. Baden has a long history as a forensic pathologist, once serving as the chief medical examiner
Yeah.
for New York City.
This guy.
He's also known for his investigations in the deaths of John Belushi, Jeffrey Epstein, and George Floyd. He also investigated the assassinations of both Martin
Wow.
Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy, and
Wow.
testified in the O.J. Simpson trial.
Wow.
He was hired by Sandra
Quite the
Birchmore.
credentials. And God bless that they were able to hire him. Bella Bell says, this breaks my heart. Thank you for both making this public. Absolutely. And like I said, we've done, did we do 2 shows before or just 1? I think we did 2, right?
No, we did one, but I think you did a show before.
Yeah. And then I had you over and
Yeah.
you know, now this is kind of heating up again. I said, I got to have you back on here and
appreciate
just, you know, hear what you have to say. And I know that you're probably, you know, excited that this new information is getting out there and we can start maybe getting somewhere with this. Listen, these guys got to be charged. I mean, this is beyond ridiculous.
with this new
Birchmore's family as part of
Go
the
ahead.
civil
with this new finding, we can put pressure on the medical examiner to reopen her case and take another look. We can put more pressure on the AG. We can put pressure on the governor to do something with the Norfolk DA's office.
Yeah.
So with this finding, because now, you know, what happened with the Karen Reed case, especially with Proctor, you know, it's already, the Norfolk DA's office is already being looked at, and not in a good way.
Right.
Everybody's side eyeing them. And now with this, they're like, what is going on in Norfolk DA's office?
Yeah.
And it's just, the same unit investigated both cases. So it's such a good chance to, and I think that's why it was dropped when it was, because they knew that everybody's eyes were on the Karen Reed case. They knew all the news trucks were at the Karen Reed case, and they knew when this came out, it would cause a frenzy with Sandra's case too, and it did. It did.
Yeah. And look now, and this is now, now they have, like I said, I think Sandra's family got the right guy involved now, Dr. Baden, to come out and do this and say this. And like I said, you're going to really question this guy. I mean, he's top notch. I mean, he's the guy. He is the guy. I mean, he essentially, you've probably written the books on autopsies, if I could say that. Diana, thank you, G. She says, your coverage and advocacy is commendable. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, let's pull this back up. I'm really kind of curious to go through this and see what he has.
Civil suit. In his recent findings, Dr. Baden disagrees with her original cause of death. With that in mind, we reached out to Joseph Scott Morgan. So what we're really zeroing in on today is whether this was a homicide or a suicide, because originally a couple years ago when this happened, it was ruled a suicide. Yep. But now we have a major professional saying, I believe it was homicide. So how do you make the determination which manner of death it is?
Well, it all begins at the scene. And when you have an individual that dies at their own hand, and that's the way we define suicide. It's literally, it's a very simple definition. It's death at one's own hand. There are certain distinct things that we look for in hangings. With suicides in our country, the number one cause of death with suicides are firearms. But in my estimation and working cases as I have, the second are actually hangings, because you can make ligatures out of anything. Nooses, that sort of thing. Even bed sheets, can be transformed into this. So when you first get to the scene, you want to be able to examine the body. If the body is still suspended when you arrive at the scene, you want to treat it very, very carefully as you begin.
Mizzy, I don't want to be graphic here, but maybe you can shine some light on this. The ligature that was found around Sandra's neck, do they know if that item came from her home or if it was an item of hers? Because that would be very interesting too.
Well, if you read the Canton police reports, we don't know what she hung herself with.
Oh.
They say different things. Officer Cotard said a rope or a string, a strap or a lanyard or something like that. Detective McCourt said it was a strap. Officer Yeaton said it was a scarf. And Lank said it was a black strap, and he said that Cotard told him that, but Cotard never described that, what Lank said. So and it's not listed, it's redacted in the Massachusetts State Police report, so we don't know what she.
But it will come out in civil trial, and that's when you're gonna get the information.
Yeah. But
and that's why. Go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I was going to say that's why. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There were 5 Canton police officers on the scene, and none of them can agree on what she hung herself.
What it was.
That's an issue.
And it's funny because most of the time, people that have strong allegations against them don't want things to go to civil trial, because that's when more information comes out than a criminal. And you found that a lot in like the O.J. Simpson trial. The civil trial. But it was funny because I'm thinking back. Turtle Boy had a live a couple of nights ago, and I remember when he was talking about Jen McCabe, and he was saying, "Please, Jen McCabe, please, sue me, because he'll get more access to her records and all that stuff. I mean, more than we heard in the criminal trial."
Yep.
So a lot of the times that's why people won't civilly sue if someone's, making public allegations against them because they don't want things to come out. They would get access to that. I'm going to bring this up. Joseph B, $10. Thanks for the support. Since phones are recording audio and video all the time, the NSA knows exactly what happened. Oh, excuse me. In Sandra's apartment. But our Fourth Amendment protects us from being spied on, but we can really use that data here. That is a possibility. Absolutely. Our phones are always doing something. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's information like that out there. We don't know. All right, let me pull this back up. Go through this.
And to remove the body from its position. Very detailed notes have to be taken. Now, sometimes when you show up at scenes, bodies have already been taken down, and that complicates cases many times. But the big question you have to ask is this individual.
A couple more super chats coming through. Karen, thank you for the $5 Canadian. So Brian and Mizzy, thank you for doing this. Keep your feet to the fire. Thank you. I appreciate that. DK 999 said, this is so tragic. The officer being so brazen tells me that I didn't think he would get caught. Tells a lot about the culture of law enforcement. Does anyone know if the officers that resigned are law enforcement somewhere else? They are not.
They are not. Matthew
Robert
Farr,
Devine, go ahead.
fully decertified. Fully decertified. He's not going through the post commission anymore. Robert Devine and William Farwell are still going through the post commission. They're not allowed to be officers right now, but they're going through the full decertification. And Joshua Heel, who we haven't really mentioned, he's the Stoughton animal control officer who did have
yes, he had relationships with her as well too.
Yeah, he had an encounter with her, and he ended up being a Abington police officer. He resigned, but he still has his license, so he's probably an officer somewhere else.
Yeah, I want people to understand when you really look at this case, as horrifying as this all is, these four guys essentially passed her around in between all of them. That's how horrifying this case is. And I just can't believe that the Norfolk District Attorney's Office would not look at a security camera video, or investigators that are involved in this case would look at a security camera video where someone that goes in that's known that is connected to Sandra, that is a possible father of Sandra, through all of this, father of the baby that Sandra was pregnant with, and come to some kind of conclusion that this person would be somewhat involved. I mean, why would you not sit him down and say, we got to talk about something here? I mean, you are the last known person that's walked into her apartment, and then 3 days later, she's found dead. I mean, that's just simple logic to sit down and say, we need to have a conversation here. But I think this goes back to, again, the bigger picture here. There is an obvious cover up of a lot of things that go on here in Massachusetts. And it's scary. It's scary. And that's why I say, Karen Reed could be any one of you in this chat room. Karen Reed could be me. Karen Reed could be Mizzy. It's scary. And I'll be honest with you, I still sit, I'm very pro law enforcement. I tend to think that most of them are good, but has my outlook on law enforcement changed after going through a lot of these cases, especially here in Massachusetts, Karen's and Sandra's case? Fuck yeah, it has. It's changed a lot. It's kind of scary. I'm kind of, I'm scared now if I'm ever stopped or anything like that. I was stopped a couple of weeks ago out on the highway, state trooper, and I thought, one, it's probably going to recognize who I am because they probably all know who we are. So I'm scared in that sense. But it turned out to actually be a really good guy, just out doing his job. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are on the force that are like that. But there are many corrupt people that are in this line of business. And I think that there has to be a lot more vetting before these people are put in some type of position. I mean, we see with the FBI and the CIA, their vetting process. And I know people have multiple issues with those organizations, but I'm just saying, there's more vetting in those process. I don't think they do enough because they know that in a lot of these cases, in and around the areas here, we're so short on law enforcement. So what they do is they just get people in, get them quickly through the academy, and get them in a uniform so they can go out and start patrolling. And it's sad because a lot of the things that don't get screened, could this person be a potential predator? Could this person be a potential person that's going to, make up evidence or hide things or be deceptive? We don't get into those details. And what happens is people like the Farwell brothers and Divine and all the other people that are involved in between responding officers in Karen's case, in this case, they get on the force. They stay there for a long time, and they get to do these evil things.
That's why I know I'm gonna lose the room with this, but please let me finish
Sure.
That's why I don't believe in the saying "back the blue." I think it's a propaganda thing. I think we need to come up with something that says we support good cops, because when you say "back the blue," that means you blindly back the blue.
Sure.
And of course, we need good cops on the streets to protect. We need good cops in the streets to, they do things that the average person won't do. They'll run into a building, they'll jump into a lake to save a child. They'll do things that, they run towards fire when most people run from it.
Run away.
And when I'm saying this, I'm not meaning it about the good cops. I just think when you say "back the blue," it's a blanket statement where you're saying we back all cops. And as a lot of you are finding out, there's a lot of bad cops out there too. But we back good cops.
Yeah.
I speech once, and I said, we need the good cops to cross that blue line and come stand next to us and stand up against their fellow officers who are bad cops, so we can all get them off the streets. It's better for everyone if those bad cops are off the streets.
Yeah, a classic example, a bad cop, Michael Proctor.
Yes.
That's not a good guy. The bad guy. It's a bad guy in this profession. And the interesting thing about it is, I try to look at these cases, when you see a cop that goes really bad, did they go into this line of profession and they were a good person and something changed them through this? Or were they initially a bad person that just got in this to be a bad person? And that we'll never know because we're not that particular person. And they're probably never going to come out and say, I went in with an intention to get back at people, or something about the job changed me. I don't think Michael Proctor is going to ever come out and say that. But, that's always the thing that I try to think about. When did these people turn? When was it for them? Was it initially out of the box, like, I'm gonna fucking get these people, don't worry? Or was it just something in the line of duty that changed them? And and that's where you have to look to. If it's something that maybe there should be more regular testing every couple of years. There should be a psychological exam. Exactly. And peel back into the layers and look at who are the people that are policing our streets. And if something has changed in them, then get them some therapy or try to help work through that. One thing that we don't want on the streets is an unstable police officer. That's very bad. It's very, very bad. And that's something that should be looked into, maybe more frequent testing, or, you have to go through a psych exam every 3 years or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how that all works, but definitely some things that we can throw out there. Let me get this. Amercy, $5. Do you know if Matt and Sandra's relationship details and timeline was provided to the original medical examiner?
I don't know, but I want to kind of piggyback off of this.
Sure.
When I was watching the Karen Reed trial, when they were going through Proctor's phone messages and he was looking for Karen's nudes, my heart sank.
Yeah.
I was very angry because there were nudes and there were videos in Sandra's case. So, and it wasn't just him that were laughing about it. It was most of the unit, like Farwell. He was on Sandra's case. So were these guys passing around her videos and laughing and yucking it up?
Probably.
And
it's probably, I guarantee you, it was being passed around, and then they went, well, if she's doing that with him, I'm sure that I could get her over here to do that with me. Something in that case, which is just off the chain, off the hook. But that's probably what happened.
Yeah. And then also with the medical examiner, how they were talking about pressuring the medical examiner, that made me wonder, in the Karen Reed case, yeah, she put out that weird statement about, oh, he didn't look like he was in a fight. She added that, which was a weird statement to be in an autopsy. But she also didn't fully give in to them. She didn't categorize his death as homicide. She said undetermined. So that was good. She kind of didn't let them talk her into it. So did this medical examiner do that with Sandra's case?
Probably.
That made me wonder, were they putting pressure on her? Were they saying, no, this is how we found her? It was definitely, she definitely did this to herself. This is how we found, what happened in her case? That were they putting pressure on the medical examiner? It happens everywhere. There's so much out there about medical examiners just following what police want, and also just being crappy medical examiners, and they shouldn't even be in the profession that they're in general. There's a lot out there. My friend Sarah, who I was talking about earlier, she's been looking into that a lot, and her son's case hinged on a crappy medical examiner, and you would be shocked at how many medical examiners pull this kind of stuff.
Yeah. DK says, did the fetal tissue get tested so paternity could be identified? It did not. And that was the big thing that Baden, which we read in the article earlier, was talking about. Mizzy, do you have a little bit more time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. I just didn't know if it was getting too late for you. I'm going to pull this video up and go back to it. It's really interesting. Let's try to play through some more of this.
Physically capable of having done this, of bringing about their own death.
Originally, Massachusetts State Police said there were no signs of physical abuse or a struggle in Birchmore's apartment. They said she killed herself by hanging. Dr. Baden rejects those findings, though, writing, quote, Ms. Birchmore did not die of suicide hanging. The cause of Ms. Birchmore's death is strangulation, and the manner of death is homicide.
We hear about the term hard point a lot. That's come up in Gilgo. When you hear hard point, that means a location where you can secure a ligature or a noose that is going to be supportive of a body. And did it work? And so you have to consider all of that. And then there's certain anatomical features that we're going to be looking for as well. I think, and folks hearing this need to think about this term. And I'll actually love this term. It's called tinting.
I think it's crazy that we watch this on, this level, and this goes all around the world. And I'm like, hey, I know that person. And just seeing all the newsprint of us standing out at the courthouse during Karen's case and all that, and all the standouts. And I'm like, I know all those people. And we all know them, but people from around the world are looking at it and they're like, oh, it's a bunch of people out there, protesting and helping. And, but it's funny, you start putting faces to people and you're like, I know all these
feature.
people.
And it's not
T-I-N-G.
It
makes you feel really good that you're associated with great people that take up these causes. I mean, there's so many people that I met out in front of the courthouse that, literally they're like, I'm taking a day off from work just so I can be here and say I did my part or tried to help. Or they organize all these standouts, or they take up a YouTube channel and start talking about this and advocating for these people that have been, clearly wronged in their life, or start a Facebook, page that has 10,000 members of it. That's fantastic. Or, a Twitter, any way that you can help advocate for anybody. They always say that, nothing is so small as, and I'm probably going to screw this saying up, but anything basically helps, no matter how small it is. That's what I'm looking. Anything helps, because if you can ignite that fire and get people to listen to you and just let it grow and let it grow and let it grow. I mean, look at the community has spawned out of this. You just look at the Free Karen Reed movement. You look at what Aiden did, taking up that case and dropping that first story back in April, and look how it's global now. The Free Karen Reed movement is global. And I go back to what Alan Jackson said to me the day that I had the privilege to go and sit in court. and you're sitting there, and he even said this on the court. I think David Yannetti actually said it on the courthouse staff, but Alan said it to me. He said, look, without the support that you have done and everybody outside that courtroom, Karen's case would be completely different. And then you heard that again on David Yannetti's speech at the end when Karen had the mistrial. On the day of the mistrial, he said basically the same thing. Karen's case would be different, and they are so grateful for everything that has happened. They don't take it for granted. And I think it's pretty amazing that you've done this, because again, if you didn't bring awareness to this, Sandra's case would be probably forgotten. It wouldn't be where it is. And that, I think it's very noble that you've done that and stood up for her. So,
and along with that, I'm just saying, I suffer from migraines. I get them like almost every day of my life. My work in between my headaches and my other ailments that I have. So if you feel like that you can't do something because you're not able-bodied, you still can use your voice. I do most of my stuff online. I send out messages. I can't be in the streets like everybody else is.
Sure.
I was trying to get down to at least one day for Karen Reed, and I wasn't able to. The day I was going to come, it was going to be 90, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah, of course.
I only go down and do standouts once in a while, but you can make a difference by just using your voice. Your voice can carry in the wind for everybody to hear, because once other people start chanting along with you, that's what happens. It builds and it builds and it builds. It's not just one voice at that moment. It's everybody saying it together. And, and with the Karen Reed, I've been able to, there's a lot of, most of the people coming to the Karen Reed, to the Sandra stuff are free Karen Reed people. And I've met so many wonderful people from who are coming to that. And, I feel like I grabbed onto Karen's coattails and just hung on for dear life to try to, because they are connected with, with the DA and the investigators. And, I've met so many amazing people, and they've been graciousness enough to help me and come stand with me, because they also feel like, Sandra needs justice too.
Of course. And Peggy, big fan of the channel. And thank you, Peggy. She says social media brings a lot of attention to these cases. People don't read many newspapers anymore. And hey, what's my tagline? It's right there on the bottom of the screen. The future is independent media. I've said it all along. The future is independent media. These cases get more attention through platforms like this than you will hear on the news. I did a case, and I'm still doing some investigating into it, but there's just there's nothing. Is Chelsea Grimm, a young lady that went missing out in Arizona. I had more material on her case and spoke to more people that were close to her on my platform than the news ever could have dug up. And people came to my channel because of that. They wanted to know what happened to Chelsea. Unfortunately, we have no conclusion. We don't still know where she is. And her parents don't want to talk about it. Her sister does not want to talk about it. They just want it to go away. Well, to me, I don't want that to go away. I want to know where Chelsea is. And that's something that I'm going to continue to do and bring up. And I'm getting ready to almost probably go knock on their door and say, where's your daughter? Let's talk about this. Because 3 of the private investigators that I've heard so far have been taken off the case. And it's interesting, because every time they get closer and closer and closer to getting some information about Chelsea, they're taken off the case. I find that interesting. And why her parents have not spoke up and said anything, have not done any recent any recent press or anything like that. They just want it to go away. Why? Because their daughter struggled with drugs. It doesn't make her a bad person. She had a problem, and she had an issue with mental health. And instead of pushing her away and calling her crazy and calling her a drug addict, they should have embraced their daughter and got her some fucking help, because she'd probably be here today. My determination, or an expert's determination, one of the PIs that went out and did grid searches in the area where Chelsea was last seen in the state park, he's come to determination, and it's very sad. He thinks that Chelsea succumbed out in the desert. And that girl deserves to be found. She deserves to be brought home. And her
Yes.
parents haven't done anything. And he said, you know what? And I apologize. I'm going off on a tangent here, but this really bothers me. He told me, Brian, you know what? I deal with people from all walks of life, people that have tons of money and people that have absolutely zero money. And I have heard that Chelsea's parents are very well off. He said the people literally that have no money will find a way to get out there and look for their children. It doesn't matter. They will take a bus, they will hitchhike, they will find a way to be there. And her parents did none of that. Did none of that. They did one interview, I believe, on News Nation, and that was it. And this poor girl's been missing almost 2 years now. I apologize. I take a seriousness to this case. I'm just as dumbfounded and upset about it. And, her parents need to come out and say something here.
She deserves, if she did succumb to the elements of what happened, she deserves to be buried. She deserves.
Of course, she deserves to be found. And the sad thing about it is she's out in the desert and she's probably never going to be found. If she's still, if she's alive, which there is a possibility of that because there's been some sightings, then she needs to be found and we need to know where she is. But I digress. Let's play a little bit
Like
more of
the
this.
10 on a window, it's TENTING.
Real quick, I just wanted to read this. Tracy 617 says $5. Sorry, it made me a bit angry when you immediately noticed the same protesters. Why would that make you angry? I think that's a good thing. Am I reading that right? Sorry, it made me a bit angry when you immediately noticed the same protesters. Well, they're not protesters; they're advocates. And I'm a little confused, but I think it's a good thing they're out there.
Like a pup tent. And so when a noose is around a neck, it extends up under the jaw and goes up and forms an apex. Kind of like if people are familiar with their Greek alphabet, like lambda, like in this position, it comes to an apex and it's supported. It's one of the features that we look for in suicidal hangings. You'll have a groove or furrow, as it's referred to, that goes up, comes to a point. Now, if you are absent that particular furrow, all right, and the person is suspended and there's no associated hemorrhage, then you need to look a little bit closer and you need to see if the ligature is perhaps covering up something else. And let's just say that an individual was strangled with bare hands. This is called throttling. This is going to leave hemorrhage in the neck, but it's going to run more parallel to the shoulder. So someone reaching out, squeezing and choking, and the hemorrhage will be diffuse, like fingers spread out. Okay. And you can actually see this. I've actually seen cases where you'll see what appear to be areas of hemorrhage that kind of look like fingers, where you can see fingers have been on it, and depending upon the
Mizzy, have you talked to any of the neighbors that lived in her building? Did they hear or see anything that day or anything out of the sorts?
I haven't. I think something was mentioned.
I'm going to tell you, we're not going to get it from the Canton PD. So I'm saying, did you talk to anybody?
No, I haven't. But I think there was something about it in the case podcast, but I can't remember what it was. I know they did try to get into the building, or they got into the building and they knocked on some doors. I just can't remember if they spoke to any of them.
I'd be curious to see if anybody heard anything that day or anything out of the sorts, like a struggle or anything, know?
Amount of pressure that's applied.
According to Dr. Baden, Birchmore would have lost consciousness within seconds after the ligature was put around her neck. He estimates she died within the next few minutes. According to Dr. Baden, multiple clues left behind at the scene point toward a homicide. To start, the ligature around Birchmore's neck was tied to a doorknob. Dr. Baden says that was done to, quote, give the appearance of a suicidal hanging.
That's what I said.
Also, if a ligature has been used as a mode of homicide, there will be a furrow, but it'll run parallel to the shoulders like this. So what happens, and we're talking about staged, suicides. You begin to think about staging. Some person might think, a perpetrator could think, that if I choke this person out and then hang them afterwards, we won't be able to figure it out.
Right.
Dr. Baden also says Birchmore left behind no note and told others she was happy about her pregnancy. Additionally, a piece of the ligature was found in Birchmore's hair. Dr. Baden says this, quote, occurs when there is resistance during homicidal strangulation.
Wow.
And then there's Birchmore's fractured hyoid bone. One of the things that Dr. Michael Baden wrote in his report is a specific mention of the hyoid bone. This is something I wasn't super familiar with, but apparently it's different in a suicide versus homicide oftentimes when it's broken or fractured.
Wow.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. Hyoid is, we refer to it as, you'll hear forensic pathologists talk about it as a bird-like structure. And what that means is that it literally has little wings on it. And kind of a little side fact here that's fascinating. The hyoid bone is the only non-articulating bone in the body. That means it doesn't communicate with any other bony feature in the body. Its sole purpose is to literally anchor our tongue in the back of our throat. So if people at home can get an idea, if you can find out where this little cartilaginous member is.
Oh, look at this, Mizzy. Storytime Nail says, I'm a postpartum nurse. It's extremely rare for a pregnant woman to take her own life. Yeah, I mean, that to me you would want to connect with the baby more. You know, you're having this baby inside you, and that I think that would be one of the last things that a pregnant mother would think about at that point.
And also she really wanted this baby, and I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. I forget. Sorry.
It's okay. If it comes back to you, just let me know. We'll pause the video.
Right here, you're the Adam's apple, and you go superior to it. It's going to vary depending upon the person, but let's just say an inch higher. That's where the hyoid actually rests, up in this area. So in order for this to be fractured, and Dr. Baden points this out, it is most common in strangulations. As a matter of fact, really in our history, the only time you see a fractured hyoid relative to a hanging, most of the time, you have to go back in time to think about judicial hangings, where the noose is positioned up very, very high and they fall from a height. And that means that they generate a certain amount of velocity. So that, and you hear about the idea of the neck snapping. And yeah, there's a dislocation in judicial.
All right. So Tracy says, $10. Thank you. This is a child who's groomed and murdered, Brian. I got upset when the discussion moved from Sandra to Karen once a pic was shown of protesters you noticed. I don't think I'm really shifting anything here. I'm just noticing people that are taking part of Sandra's awareness. I mean, I don't think Tracy, I'm going to really disagree with you here. I don't think there's any major problem. I'm pointing out people that are also involved in the Karen Reed movement and the Sandra movement. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And I don't think that my focus on this live has shifted at all. And truthfully, it does have some connections here. We've established that through this live show tonight. So I really have to disagree with you. I don't think anybody in the room is disagreeing. I was just simply pointing out people that we know, and we haven't lost focus. We're focusing here. So
standouts do go to both standouts.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, Scott's in the chat. He comes to all of everything that I do. You know, he's been so supportive of Sandra Birchmore, and he is like a huge Karen Reed supporter. So, you know, you don't have to be just one. You can support both of them. It's supporting injustice. You know, it's supporting that the person who was murdered gets justice, and that we should all want that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that you can go anywhere in a free Karen Reed standout and you're hearing justice for Sandra as well. I mean, I hear that all the time. I hear it. It probably once or twice when people are chanting "Free Karen Reed." I mean, you hear it as well too. So they're, I mean, they're both one and the same. I would say. Go ahead, Mizzy.
Grant mentioned that she did an episode on Sandra Birchmore, and she said, "I didn't know that they were talking about Sandra Birchmore at the Karen Reed
Yeah, of course.
hearings or trial. Yeah. I didn't know that because they actually interviewed Trisha, and they were like." We didn't know that this was going on there. No, you didn't know because you didn't take time to actually talk to people. You just,
Yeah. Caroline says, Brian, it's also very odd, I guess, for people who are into true crime that we're so used to watching things happen other states here and there. It's happening in our own backyard. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was, getting at. Like, this is just so close to all of us. I mean, I live literally 20 minutes from where all this is happening. All right, let's keep
hangings.
I want to hear more about
the C1 and C2, which is a critical area. But many times you would find fractured hyoids, but that doesn't happen with most hangings. People don't snap their necks when it's at their own hand. Most people asphyxiate. They don't fall from a significant height in order to generate that kind of velocity in order to and the rope has to be, or lucha has to be positioned up like this. And how do you access that? Well, I don't want to put words into Dr. Mike's mouth here, but
I mean, Mizzy, essentially looking at this, I mean, when he was up there, 20 to 29 minutes, you said? I mean, he literally had to just walk in and then that's it. He just went at her. It has to be the case. I mean,
I have my suspicions. I think, seeing as how they did a rape kit, I've always suspected that he lulled her into a sauce, had sex with her.
Sexual situation, yeah.
To get her off guard, and then that's what he did. Then when they said the rape kit, it made me say maybe I was right. I mean, I have no proof of that. One of the things that I've never known, I have not come across, is was she clothed? What was she wearing? Was she partially clothed? For them to do a rape kit makes you wonder
that she probably had her clothes off,
or at least partially undressed. When I did
that'll come out in the civil trial, though. That'll all come out in the civil trial. You'll get that information. Yeah.
When I wanted to get the FOIA request on to get this report, that's all I wanted to know if the hyoid bone was broken. Because if it was, I was sure that would give me the answer that I knew. And now that I have it, it confirms what I knew.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. Now that Baden's come out and said it, there you go.
Yeah.
What he is pointing out is the fact that this hyoid was fractured by his view, and that in order to access that, you have to go so high up on the neck. Most of the time, a noose is not going to accomplish that task. It has to be high and constant pressure. And we've heard this, and Dr. Mike has spoken about this extensively relative to Epstein. That is an atypical injury that you have in a hanging. That means it does not occur. You have to have sufficient amount of velocity in order to make that bone fracture. And that's what we're looking at here with her. I think per Dr. Baden, was there a sufficient amount of force that could have been generated, and was the noose positioned in such a way that it would have snapped? Probably unlikely in most of the cases that he's talking about. This homicidal asphyxiation with throttling high up on the neck, pressure, the little bone will fracture.
Dr. Baden also notes a sexual assault kit was performed after Birchmore died, but was never tested. Morgan says that's normal protocol.
Anytime we have a female victim in my field, it's kind of common practice to go ahead and do a sexual assault kit when they die under odd or suspicious circumstances. It's better.
Let's see. Tracy again chiming in $10. Thank you. You didn't have to do that, Tracy. She says, my apology. Honestly, I took your action of the photo the wrong way. I love what you do. You, Mazza, Microglare, Melanie, you guys are changing the world, and I'm so grateful. It's no problem. Like sometimes it's hard to perceive what people are doing. I mean, look, we're virtually talking to everybody tonight. You don't know our mannerisms. You're not sitting in front of us. And listen, there's no offense taken. You know, maybe you perceived it differently, and that's fine. You know, we just, the only reason I said that, and again, you know, I don't want to explain it too long here, is because I noticed the same people that are out during this movement, and I think you collectively get a lot of that group, because this is it's such a you know, an interlocking case. I'm not saying it's the same case, but there's a lot of similarities in here with a cover up. So, but thank you. I appreciate that. And then 499er comes in, says, if you have time, check out the disappearance of Amanda Grayswick from Derry, New Hampshire. I'll look into it. I want to get through this because I don't want to stall Mizzy too much longer. I know it's getting late, and I just want to hear more
to
about
have done it and
bone.
not need it, right? Because once the body is taken care of by funeral home in whatever manner, you've lost that opportunity.
Thanks for the 3 coffees.
So you have to do it at that moment in time.
We may not have the results of the sexual assault kit right now, but it's not too late.
We've had a horrible track record in this country with sexual assault kits, where they've been shelved and that sort of thing. And my biggest concern, I think, if they did in fact do a sexual assault kit on her, which is going to be swabs and probably nail scrapings and nail clippings, and also hair sampling. What's the status of storage on that? Because you're talking about biological.
Seriously, Mizzy, if this guy, if Matt was talked to, and I'm looking now, I'm thinking of all the stuff, like you just said, nail scrapings, nail clippings, you know, they could have talked to him, sat down, checked him over, made sure he didn't have any scratches on him. They didn't do any of that. He could have had a scratch on his neck, on his arms, and that would have kicked this all off and said, hey, something's wrong here. And maybe potentially caught him in the situation of, you know, possibly murdering Sandra. I mean, it's just.
I mean, the first time they spoke to him in a parking lot. Like.
For like 5 minutes, probably, right?
Yeah, they just, you know, said, you know, oh, we found out that you were connected to Sandra, and he lied to them. That should have been an even bigger indication. He told them that they had only started having sex in 2020. He flat out lied to them.
Why?
So it's like, why was he lying? Like, why didn't they fully investigate it? That's what my whole thing has been. Why didn't they fully investigate this man?
Yeah.
If it was
should have been more.
As a man, and this happened to your girlfriend or a girl you were dating or whatever, and the same circumstances, you better believe that they would have went after you. They would have got DNA. They would have sat you down for hours. It would have been a taped interview. You wouldn't have left there.
Yeah, and then you would have left, and they would have kept looking into you. I mean, we see this shit all the time. I just watched a case on, wasn't Court TV, one of the crime channels, and it was an old episode of like, I don't know, investigation something, and it's like, you know, the husband, the wife ends up dead. They totally suspect that it's the husband all along, and they interview him. And, you know, they're not getting the information, but they keep that watchful eye on him. And then more things just keep coming out. And then eventually they nail him down, and they're like, yeah, you're the one that did it. And if they probably could have done that in this case. I mean, they probably could have done that.
Logical evidence.
Insane.
That would be indwelling there, and it can be very fragile. So I would hope that would be pushed forward. I'm encouraged by the fact that they actually did a kit. It's just that apparently it hasn't been analyzed. And there's certain features that we look for physically on the female body to see if there's evidence of sexual assault that had taken place. My suspicion is that they didn't see anything like that at that particular time, but they went ahead and did the kit.
Let's take a quick break from the story of Sandra Birchmore to
all right. Let's go. I'm not sponsored by Truth
that are accused of having sexually assaulted her, but apparently one is alleged to be the father of her baby. She was 3 months pregnant at the time she died. Now we're years past when she died. Is it too late to go back and figure out who exactly was the father?
No. In most cases, we do at autopsy what's referred to as a blood card. A blood card is you take a sampling um, from uh, from the victim, and it's placed onto literally a little card, and it's stowed at that point in time, and it would be kept on file. Now, when you have, I believe her number was 3 months. She was 3 months along. She was at probably the end of the first trimester. What type of samples did they take from fetus? And that would be significant here as well. I don't know. I don't know how much data they could have retrieved from that fetus in order to facilitate that for genetic testing. But there would probably be some. The trick here is what samples did they take and how were they preserved?
Yeah.
Before she died, Birchmore told her friends the identity of her baby's father, former police officer Matthew Farwell. He's also believed to be the last person to see Birchmore alive. Security camera video from her apartment shows Birchmore arrive home at 5:46 p.m. on February 1st. 4 hours later, Matthew Farwell arrives at 9:27 p.m. the same
Mizzy,
day.
it's so
He's
obvious.
seen entering through the main door and then going up the elevator. Just minutes later, at 9:56 p.m., he can
Looking
be
at
seen
that
leaving.
camera always creeps me out.
Farwell's wife gave birth to a baby boy the very next day, and Birchmore's body was found 2 days after that. Farwell later told Mass State Police troopers that he visited Birchmore that night to tell her things were over between them and that he was blocking her from all forms of communication. He denies any wrongdoing. But those aren't
real quick before we finish this up. I got upset at I don't think it was NBC Boston, maybe Channel 10 or 7. They did a report. It was like a 1-minute clip, and they were talking about this. And I don't like the wording they used, which is complete bullshit. They said that Sandra was having inappropriate relationships with the police officers. No, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
The police officers were having inappropriate relationships with Sandra. And I took offense to that. I was going to play the clip, and I'm like, I'm not even going to support that because it's just, it's disgusting, the verbiage that they used.
Aren't the only allegations against him. In fact, those date back to 2011 when Birchmore was just 13 years old. She was part of the Stoughton Police Department's Explorers program. It works to give kids an inside look at the criminal justice system and provide them mentoring.
That's Robert Devine, right?
Robert Devine. He was the former deputy chief who got bounced down to back down to patrolman after another sex scandal.
Great quality people in Stoughton. Great.
From hands-on experience with officers.
What's that, Mizzy?
And he ruined that girl's life along with his wife, who was a Quincy cop.
Oh, God.
Through this program that Birchmore got connected with Matthew Farwell, his twin brother, William Farwell, and another officer, Robert Devine. The officers allegedly began grooming Birchmore when she was only 13.
I'm telling you, she's not the only victim.
Matthew Farwell is accused of sexually assaulting Birchmore when she turned 15. At the time, he was 27. An investigation later found hundreds of explicit texts between he and Birchmore over the span of multiple years. Investigators also found explicit texts from his twin brother, William Farwell, sent to Birchmore as well. Both Devine and Matthew Farwell are accused of having sex with Birchmore in their patrol cars. All three men have denied these allegations, but resigned from the Stoughton Police Department in 2022.
The thing about when you're around police officers, they should be, kind of a standard that everybody looks up to, that esteems to want to be, in a perfect world. And unfortunately, when you look at these circumstances where you have allegedly a young woman, very young, as a matter of fact, when she started on her journey, she was fascinated by police officers. You would expect for that young girl to be protected and shielded in this environment. And it really, the case itself, it feels like a certain level of trust was betrayed and she was taken advantage of. From
That's-
at least that's what we're reading and that's what we're hearing, and it's very sad, very very sad. And the fact that she essentially lost her life, whether or not it was at her hands or the hands of another, even kind of puts a big exclamation point on the end of that statement, I think.
In 2022, Birchmore's family filed civil suit against the Farwells and Devine, writing they, quote, undertook to engage in inappropriate relationships with Birchmore, who was a minor when the sexual relationships were initiated, abusing her trust and adoration of law enforcement, which, through their inappropriate and undue influence, ultimately led her to allegedly take her own life. The same year, the Stoughton Police Department released the results of an internal investigation. According to Police Chief Donna McNamara, the report showed, quote, horrific injustices, including grooming and sexual abuse inflicted upon Sandra Birchmore at the hands of one rogue and corrupt.
How are these people not being charged? I mean, even the disgusting police chief here is saying it, and they're not charging them.
And this is like all the grooming and all that information came from their own police department. It was the Stoughton Police Department that said.
How are these people not being charged right now? They should be in cuffs, locked up. I mean, you even have, for Christ's sakes, the police chief now saying it, and we know about her. Jeez, I don't want to get into that.
Former police officer and additional inappropriate sexual relationships by other former police officers.
Well, that's something I think relative to the culture of the department that they would want to really do a deep dive on. And you have to go back a few years now, who populated the staff at that particular time. Was she exposed to any kind of inappropriate behavior, or was she in contact with individuals that might have a history of this sort of thing? And I think the most chilling thing to me is that if this was facilitated for a 15-year-old to come and be at the station, my question is,
how many more people?
Are there any others?
Yep, and that's what I said.
That's what
there's more people.
What kind of really catches my eye here, because when a case like this comes out or bubbles up to the surface, it can go one of two ways. Many times, you'll have people that'll be pretenders that will say, "Yeah, this happened to me," and it turns out that it didn't happen,
right?
Because they're looking for a payday, maybe. But then you'll have that one small voice that's out there that says, "Finally, somebody else has brought notice to this. This is what happened to me. This is my story." So I would anticipate that you will.
I mean, that's essentially what happened in the Larry Nesser story. It just took one girl to speak out, and then all of a sudden it just and it went off like fireworks. I mean, there was tons of girls that came forward. All right, we're gonna play another about 4 minutes. It's getting late. We're coming up about 2 hours here. I just need everybody to do this, please. Everybody that's in this room right now, let me look up. There's 1,530. There's 1,531 of you. I need every single person right now to smash the like button in this room, because if you will do that, it will help continue this video after it posts out in the algorithm. This is a very, very, it's probably one of the most important videos that I've done on my channel. We need to get this out more to people out in the YouTube world so they can see this and get involved in this movement and fight back against all the corruption that's gone on, especially in Sandra's case. I don't like to diminish anything here. I don't want to diminish anything. Karen's case is, yes, very, very important. But because the fact that this case involves an underage girl with known law enforcement that are involved in grooming this young girl, that is even worse than anything on this planet that you could think of. When someone takes advantage of someone that's underage, they are a demon. That's the only way I can describe it. You are a demon, and then you need to go and just be eliminated or just put away for the rest of your life. So it's very, very important. So let's do this. We'll finish up the last 4 minutes. I'll give Mizzy a final word, and then we'll end this live tonight. And Mizzy, thank you so much again for doing this. Like I said, we did one back in March, and as more information comes out, I'd love to have you come back over here again and get the word out to anybody. And I told you before, anytime you need this platform to speak on Sandra's behalf, you have it. Just let me know and we'll set something up.
Thank you for having me again. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's keep playing through this.
Probably hear potentially from other people. The trick is, as an investigator, how do you vet all of that and separate that out? Because there can be a lot of chatter in the news about that sort of thing. If another person comes forward, I'd be looking for that, because generally where you have one event like this, you're going to have more than one victim.
Thank you,
and so
Motion.
that's
you.
going to be quite interesting to watch as this case develops.
No problem.
When it comes to Dr. Baden's recent findings, Chief McNamara says she was profoundly disturbed by the report, but notes that Birchmore died in Canton, meaning Stoughton police don't have jurisdiction to investigate. But Dr. Baden's name alone could mean others investigate. Dr. Baden is very well respected. He's highly decorated. He has participated in some of the most intense cases that we've seen across the country. So when his name is thrown around, people are taking a closer look for sure. So do you think it's possible then that charges could be brought in this case based on his recent findings?
I think that merely his presence in this case is going to compel the prosecutor. And that's where this needs to start.
We would only hope
deep
so.
dive.
Probably not going to.
All of the parties involved in this to look back in time. Let's just say that this turns out not to be a homicide. The implication of this in the law enforcement community, just this taint that would be upon.
I mean, either way, and we're going to say here, just what the doctor's talking about. Let's just the determination comes that this is not a homicide. The issue here is that there's still the grooming factor in the underage sex from an adult. That needs to be dealt with, and it hasn't been dealt with. So you have multiple issues going on in this case. I mean,
and what they did to her, I believe she was murdered, but even if she wasn't murdered,
right,
it was because of them. It was because of the abuse they inflicted upon her is what took her life. Whichever way it went.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Upon their image requires that this be thoroughly investigated, and that it's open, that people know that their police are not corrupted in any way. And I think that the authorities running the police department would want that as well. They would invite that in. So, and that, again, going back to Dr. Baden and his reputation, that's one of the times, or one of the things that causes that switch to be flipped when his name is mentioned, and that he's looking at this. There's just certain people in the medical legal community, when their name is mentioned, people are going to sit up and take notice. Good. And
I'm glad they got the best.
Dr. Baden is certainly one of those.
In the end, Morgan says Dr. Baden's report holds some major weight in this case. When you are looking at the report that Dr. Baden brought forward, are you thinking the same thing, that this could have been homicide rather than suicide based on the facts?
Well, yeah, I think that there's certainly enough information that it needs to be probed at this point in time. And then given all of the circumstantial, the storm that this has created, it's something that's going to require a long look.
Linda.
But
Appreciate
on the flip side of that, it's very important that all of this data that should have started at the scene, relative to her mental health history, and relative to any previous attempts, if there were any kind of vocalization that she had done about being depressed or anything, all of that has to be factored in. And given Dr. Baden's expertise, I can only assume that has crossed his desk, and he's viewed all of this, and then take that circumstantial data, or the absence thereof, and factor that in with what he's physically seeing. This demands that the police take a deeper look at this.
Just this year, the Peace Officers and Training Commission added Matthew Farwell to a national database for law enforcement accountability. He's also barred from working as a cop in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Commission proceedings in the cases of William Farwell and Robert Devine are still pending. Reporting for Law and Crime.
Wow, interesting. But it needs to go further. We need to have these guys in cuffs and behind bar. I mean, just even knowing about the assaulting and the underage and the grooming, that to me right there is just a damn shame on the Norfolk DA's office that they're not pursuing any deeper charges. Because what? Because Sandra's not here anymore. That's disgusting, and it needs to be taken care of. And you know, we'll get behind this and keep pushing and help you out. Any last words, Mizzy, before we go?
Tell
us where we can find all this information if you want to let everybody know where the socials are, and let everybody know.
Go to the Justice for Sandra Birchmore Facebook page. Also at Sandra Birchmore Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I am going to be starting to do lives on my page to cover Sandra's case more, so I can answer a lot of questions, do a lot of Q&As. It's an easier way for me to push, since there's so many people coming to the page now, I can push more stuff out and put it on the page. So you can go to A Mixed Girl in a Mixed Up World and follow me on YouTube or Facebook. Just please spread, share this video on your social media. The more Sandra's case gets out there, the more people learn about it. And the more people that, if there's another victim that will come forward, the more people who they know will stand by them. If a victim wants to come to me and tell me, I'll go to the FBI with you. I have no, or I'll go to the DA's office with the, not the DA.
You don't want to go there.
General you, and go hold your hand while you talk to them. You should come forward, because these guys need to be brought to justice, because they're just going to do it to somebody else. There's going to be another little girl that they're going to do it to.
Or a boy. It could be boy, anybody. Yeah.
Till it's stopped. And now that this has come out that it is a homicide, which I already knew it was, but now I can say it with having some authority behind me. We need to push the medical examiner to reopen her case and take another look at her autopsy, and really keep at the attorney general, the even put pressure on Morrissey's office. We can't let him let him out from under this. He needs to feel the heat of this. And
Stoughton police.
The Stoughton police, the Canton police. They were in on her death. They were part of the death investigation. And the attorney general, also I meant to say the governor. And we need to get, even with the Karen Reed case also, we need to start talking to state reps. Where is the state rep, whether it be the state senator or the representative from Norfolk County? Where that person? They need to start stepping up and speaking up for victims in Norfolk County. There is no reason why a case like Sandra's has been swept under the rug for 3.5 years.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about it is, if we let them get away and let this roll off the back, there'll be other cases like this that will go through the same thing. I just want to make sure and just put this out on the platform, because we are talking about protesting and standouts and stuff. Anything, especially here, done on my channel, if I ever tell anybody to go out and protest and use their First Amendment right, I want you to do it peacefully. Don't get yourself in any type of trouble. We want these to be peaceful. You know how to conduct yourself as adults, and I'll leave it at that. But Mizzy, again, if there's anything that I can do here for you, you have my platform available. Just hit me up and we'll do this again. And as more information comes out, I'd love to do this again. I just wanted to hash this up, get it more mental focus in the front of people's minds, because we, like I said, we found out about a week and a half ago some new information. We now have Dr. Baden's blessing on this, saying that in his determination is a homicide. He's one of the best. And as you just saw, when he tends to speak up, people listen. So we'll leave it at that now. As the civil trial comes out, maybe we get some information, and we'll go from there. So
there is a hearing on the 11th.
There's a hearing on the 11th. Excellent. So maybe we'll get some information, you know, after that. Maybe we can do another live or something when more information comes through. And like I said, anytime you need this platform, just let me know. Programming note to everybody before we go off air. As you see, I'm back in my bedroom again. The other day, there was a spike in my studio. A transformer went down outside, out in Rentham. It caused a big electrical spike through my building that my studio is in, and it caused the transformer inside the building to actually blow up and almost catch fire. Good thing is they're working on replacing it, troubleshooting the problem. Hopefully, we're back there by Tuesday or Wednesday. It's a major project, a big project. And hopefully my studio didn't get fried, because usually a big electrical spike, not good. I don't have any way of testing anything right now, but people that I've talked to, they said it should be okay. That's what the breaker is there for. And hopefully everything survived and we're back in the studio, because I don't like doing things from my bedroom. That's why I got a studio. But anyway, that's going to be it. I appreciate it. Let me just get this one more. AJ says, have you seen the police report, the dates that are conflicting? You can find all that information on the Facebook page. So I would urge you to go over there, and there are tabs that you can go under documents, correct? And you'll be able to read all those reports. So again, Mizzy, thank you so much for taking time to do this. Can you chill just for like 2 seconds after you go off air? I just want to touch base with you. Anyway, everybody, I'm going to head out. It's been a long night. I'm going to go to the Canton. I'm going to go to the Canton community meeting on Tuesday. I want to go down there and actually experience that for the first time, and I'll get back to you with any reporting from that. And then Thursday, if everything is up and running, I'm going to have Maz Media live in the studio with me. We're going to talk about the Karen Reed case. Maybe we can talk a little bit about Sandra Birchmore while we're there, and go from there. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody. Please make sure to go over and subscribe to the Facebook page, Justice for Sandra Birchmore. That's going to be it. We're going to head out. Good night, and thank you for watching this live. See you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Take the change and set the track, line up a minute.